Your home is important. That's why Geico helps make it easy to save on condo insurance. Because home is more than just a place. Home is where you took minimalism too far because there's only one chair in your entire condo and your only entertainment is one card. Not even a deck of cards, but a single card. And all your guests have to share one plate and one fork, but you're convinced that less stuff means more freedom. The Geico Insurance Agency could help protect the overly minimalist broom closet you call home. Call Geico and see how easy it is to switch and save on condo insurance.
Geico presents Yikes! Another voicemail from your roommate.
Sup, roomie? Hey, a pipe burst in the basement. It's completely flooded. Anyway, I called for someone to fix it, but in the meantime, I was thinking we could finally have that indoor pool party we've always wanted. I got some cool swan floaty things already going. Could you pick up some chips on your way home? Later.
The Geico Insurance Agency could help keep your personal property protected, like if your roommate isn't the brightest pool float in the flooded basement. Visit geico.com to see how easy it is to switch and save on renter's insurance.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, you look like hell.
Yeah, I feel like hell. Thanks for noticing. That's a true friend. A true friend will tell you when you look like hell.
Well, I mean, the fact that you're holding the severed head of what looks like some kind of strange troll is, kind of disconcerting. Have you been to Azeroth and back in the week that you were gone? What's the story here?
Oh man, I don't know shit about Azeroth, but I don't know if any of you have worked retail or a warehouse before or anything, but I've spent the last several weeks getting ready for my work's physical inventory. And if you've worked retail, you've probably done a physical inventory, and they suck because you basically shut down and you just count everything you have to see if what you physically have matches your system. And I run my company's physical inventory. My company has 4 warehouses, and I had to run 2 of these physical inventories remotely, and then I had to be there physically at 2 of them. So I've worked like 34 hours of overtime in the last 2 weeks. So I've worked almost a full week, like a full extra week in the last 2 weeks. And PI is just like, it's my nightmare week. Like last week is my hell week. And this is my like recovering from hell week where I haven't had time to do anything that wasn't work related. And I just sort of hate life. I'm so tired. I just want to sleep. Let me sleep.
All right. Well, I guess in that case, for this episode, we're going to do something light and easy. We're going to do an Ask a Geek mailbag here. We're going to dig out some questions here, and we're going to just have a nice, easy show this week because I'm still kind of recovering from the post E3 hangover. So that was a hell of a party. But anyway, let's just jump right into it and just start digging into some questions here. And let's see here now. Okay, here's a question here. This one is for both of us, and this one comes from Carrie, and she asked, now that Voltron the Legendary Defender is over, are there any properties that we would like to see that production company tackle next? So Kat, let's start with you, because you're a longtime fan of this studio.
I mean, okay, so let's think about this logically. Are we talking about like just any property or some sort of amazing retro property like Voltron?
Let's open up the floor. Let's go wild. We are limited only by our imagination and what would conceivably make a suitable kids program. So I don't think that Cat House would be an animated Cat House series would fly very far.
Okay, so genuinely, this just hit me out of nowhere. A new Ghostbusters cartoon.
Ooh.
By that studio, how amazing would that be?
That would be awesome.
Didn't we all love the Ghostbusters? Like, what was that? Like the 80s or the 90s?
There were actually 2 Ghostbusters cartoons. There was the real Ghostbusters in the late 80s, which was based off of the first movie. And then in the 90s, we had Extreme Ghostbusters, which was actually my first intro to the Ghostbusters franchise. And that's a property that I'd like to see get some love, because that was a great set of characters there.
I think I watched the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah. That's the one that most people remember.
Yeah.
Because Extreme aired at like bumfuck in the morning o'clock before school. And because I had to get up at 5:30 a.m. every school day because my school was an hour away from where I lived, I was one of the only people who was up early enough to see it. Yeah, it sucked. Ooh, okay, let's see. All right, if I could pick a property that I would like to see that studio adapt, I've said for years I would love to see a Final Fantasy VI animated series just because it has such a great ensemble of characters. And my love for that was spurred by, if you go searching on YouTube for Final Fantasy VI Full Metal Alchemist, someone did a mock-up of the second Full Metal Alchemist opening, Ready Steady Go, except they swapped out all the FMA characters with Final Fantasy VI characters, and it looks like it came out of an official anime. It's fucking awesome. And ever since I saw it, I was like, it's a crime that this has never been made into an anime or some kind of animated series, because that is just such a wonderful story. So let's see here now. Next question here. All right, this one here comes from John, and he asked me what I think about retro collectors who collect as an investment. So I guess he's talking about people who collect stuff that's rare just to like basically use their collection as a savings account. It's not my thing. I feel like, I collect games that I want to play. I don't like having, just buying stuff just to put on a shelf and look at it. I like to actually be able to, play it and enjoy it. It's actually, I think I've told this story before, but when I actually finally got the actual value of my collection noted, my dad was like, well, you should put it in a safe deposit box and keep it safe because it's literally the most valuable thing you own. And I'm like, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to put it in a safe deposit box. I want to have it out, on display where I can enjoy it. And it's like, or would you just have $16,000 cash just sitting out, on display? And I'm like, yeah, but we're not talking about hard cash. We're talking about an entertainment medium. But I mean, people will do what they do. So I guess, and I've seen people put investments in stranger things. I had a great uncle who his whole retirement fund came from a stamp collection that he sold for like $200,000. Jesus. Yeah. So, I've certainly seen stranger things. Now, the only exception to this is the prospector, and these are the people who they will buy something up just so they can turn around and sell it for ridiculously inflated prices. And you'll see a lot of these with collector's editions or stuff that has a limited release. Like, I'll tell you a good example of something I've seen recently in terms of the prospector. When Smash Brothers Ultimate was first announced at the tail end of at E3 in 2018, and they announced that they were going to be bringing out GameCube controllers for people to use to play Smash on. Within, I want to say, 3 months of those controllers being released, when they were first released, they retailed for about $35. Within 3 months, the price had climbed to upwards of $70 because people were buying them out and then just turning around and selling them at ridiculously inflated prices. So that's the one thing that really irritates me as far as game collecting goes, is the prospect of people who they will deliberately buy entire stock of things up so that they can turn around and sell them at just these predatory prices. And I've hated that, and I've hated that practice ever since the whole Ni no Kuni fiasco, which, for those who don't know what happened there, when Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch was first released, I think it was their collector's edition, there was a screw up with the pre-orders, and all the pre-orders wound up going to, a bunch of eBay prospectors who wound up turning around and selling those collector's editions for like $300 a pop. And none of the people who actually put in pre-orders to get the game themselves wound up getting their game. But I mean, that's the only type of collector I would say really irritates me, is the prospector. Anyone else, you collect for whatever reason you want to collect, and you collect what you want to collect, and who am I to judge? So that's the only kind of collector that irritates me. Just out of idle curiosity, Kat, do you often see prospectors in anime fandom?
You know, not quite like that. That probably exists like hardcore in Japan. I imagine there's a lot of that going on with collector's editions of things. You know, like maybe say like convention exclusives and stuff like that. But here, I really don't feel, because here in the US, the merchandising rights are not quite the same way, so I don't feel like we have quite the same issues. And it's a slightly different crowd, because the collectors for anime are not like the collectors for video games. Video games are still infinitely more popular than anime is. So, I mean, there's still a lot of people who will go out and buy specific things. But in terms of inflating the cost of stuff, the companies do that for you. But I'd say the one thing that actually really grinds my gears are art book prices.
Oh, yeah.
Because you probably have the same thing with video game art books, but anime art books are obviously, like, to import them, it gets quite pricey because importing books. So when I lived in Japan, I could go down to Book Off, this wonderful used bookstore, and get a pristine condition art book that would retail for like $20 or $30, and I could get it for like $3 or $4. And when you go and you find that exact same condition here from somebody at a con or something, they're charging like $70 or $80. Partially because of the import, but if you start to look for like older books, the inflation cost of say like the original Sailor Moon art books, the people who are selling them at cons want you to pay like $700 for them because they're out of print.
Fuck that!
Right? Like, I legitimately have watched over the course of my time as a fan, watched these skyrocket from being like $60 or $70 to like $700. And there's nobody who's going to buy them for that. Like, I'm sorry, but like the weebs who go to cons do not have that much money. Like, some weebs online probably, but the weebs who go to cons are not dropping $700 in cash for this thing.
I mean, shit. That if for a con, that's $700. That's one night's rental of a hotel room, isn't it?
That's your whole con right there. Like, that's a really nice hotel room for like 3 or 4 nights, plus your ticket, plus your food, plus some other stuff. Like, that, like $700 is crazy. And that might be an exaggeration. I know I've seen like it go from over 300 though, and it's like nobody's dropping that much on it. And also it depends on the popularity of the franchise too. One of the things that killed me in Japan, as I'm getting so far off topic from collectors, but one of the things in Japan, when you'd go to like the capsule stores or something and you'd want to buy like figurines, they would just like deliberately charge more for the more popular characters because they know the demand's higher.
Okay, again, now capsule stores, you're going to have to explain that one to me.
Like a store where you'd go and you just like buy figurines, but it's typically where you'd go and go to the capsule machines. You put in your quarters and you spin a little thing and it spits out a random thing in a ball.
So they have whole shops of just those?
Yes.
Huh, okay.
Isn't it amazing? It's such a cool place. But there's like, specifically in Denden Town in Osaka, there was like a capsule shop that also was, that also just sold straight up figurines, and they would charge like twice as much for the more popular characters. So like when I was there, Bleach was like the hottest thing in the world. And if you wanted like Toshido or like one of the really cool characters, you're paying like 2 or 3 or 4 times as much for the same size and quality figurine as you would have like Aizen or something. It was stupid. You're like, this isn't fair. I guess I'll buy this cheaper one with this character I don't like quite as much, just because it's cheaper.
I'll tell you where you do see a lot of prospectors swinging back to game collecting, and that's with stuff like limited run games or super rare games. You'll have people who will they will just camp the pre-orders, and then turn around and sell the game for like 3 times what the pre-order or the original price was, and that just irritates the hell out of me. It's one of the bones I have to pick with just limited run prints in general, is just they're just prime bait for the prospector. But anyway, I think we've rambled on about this topic long enough.
But prospectors, okay, so like here's something I didn't know was a thing, but getting back to gaming and what you were just talking about, limited games, my local comic book shop does a used gaming auction. And they'll take in whatever you want to get rid of, like Warhammer figurines or old Dungeons and Dragons books, et cetera, and they will sell them at auction for you, and then you get credit towards the store, so you could buy something new. So it's this really cool system, and it's really well run. But there's like a couple of guys there who will go out of their way to bid on some more older or more exclusive items that they are just going to turn around and resell. And they are dropping like several $1,000s in the course of a couple of hours just on like super old RPG books. Like, I didn't know there was a market for this, but it doesn't surprise me.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's yeah. That's kind of I don't know what to think about that, because on the one hand, like, that's kind of a predatory practice for them to do that, but on the other hand, I mean, that's money that's going to your average friendly local game store, and those are stores that definitely need the money and need the support. So it's kind of like, gotta take the good with the bad on this one.
Yeah, it's like I'm really glad that our local game store is being supported, but damn, how much is that first edition Call of Cthulhu really worth? If you're willing to drop $800 on it at auction, how much are you going to turn around and sell it for? Jeez.
Yeah, that would actually be a question to put to Mike when he comes back.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's see here now. Another question here. Okay. This question here comes from Paul, and it's for you, Kat. And he asks, as a Sailor Moon fan, what is your favorite dub of Sailor Moon? Or do you even watch the dubs at all? And
I do not watch the dubs. That has nothing to do with a distaste for the dubs, because I just haven't watched them. I haven't watched Sailor Moon since they made Crystal and dubbed it. The last time I watched Sailor Moon was when Crystal first started coming out. Like the first season of Crystal. So like I maybe got like 9 or 10 episodes into it, and then shit happened, and then I never caught back up, and I haven't watched any more of it. I have gotten to meet a lot of the people who are now part of that new dub, because the Crystal dub and the redub of Sailor Moon are the same cast. So it's just the same cast working on 2 different versions of the same show. And then obviously there was like the Deke dub, and then whatever took over for Deke that was just equally bad. I mean, for what they were at the time, I guess they're all right. They're not the worst thing in the world. I give them a lot of shit for changing all of the character names. But actually, when I think about it, like a lot of thought went into the character, like the Americanized names that they chose. They chose names like specifically to either meet the lip flaps or have some sort of the meaning of the name equals the same thing, more or less. So, like, they did put a little more thought into it than we give that shitty dub credit for, but it was, in fact, all.
But then again, I mean, what can you expect from an early '90s anime dub? I mean, back then, anime was still weird cartoons that you bought from, a guy in a trench coat in a back alley.
Now, granted, this was a syndicated show, so this was specifically geared towards family and mostly kids, where they were trying to, like Luna says, or Sailor Moon says, and Luna would teach you a lesson at the end of every episode, because they needed to get it onto the television where the kids were going to watch it and hopefully sell some fucking merchandise. Which they did, because there was a line of toys and everything. And but you know, a lot of this stuff was cut. I mean, like, even the show itself was really like chopped up compared to what the manga was, and which is why Crystal was such an appealing thing, because it was basically gonna potentially follow the manga a little bit more, and then the parts of it that I've seen that have detoured in really pleasant ways.
Now,
but I haven't watched a dub yet. I like I said, I like the people who they've cast. I just haven't actually watched it, which makes me a really bad Sailor Moon fan.
Now, this is a question that I want to ask, especially with the kerfuffle over the recent Netflix cut of Evangelion. But how do you feel about shows being re-released with new edits or all new redubs?
I generally don't have a problem with that, especially when something was dubbed in the 90s, because 90s dubs were really not the best thing in the world. 90s dubs fell victim very oftentimes to dub titles, where they didn't actually give you subtitles for the Japanese version. They just transliterated whatever was going on in the English script and made that the subtitles, so that when you watched the Japanese, you were just getting the English dub in words. And I feel like I don't remember Evangelion because I didn't actually really enjoy the show. And you know what, guys? It's okay. I'm here to tell you, it's okay not to give a shit about the Evangelion redub and the recut and the changes made about it, because I have said for always that it is one of the most overrated anime ever made. And it has had a really huge impact in the industry, but the actual quality of the show is tremendously overrated. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in it, but that doesn't mean that it's all good or not overrated. And I got this feeling because they keep bringing it back every once in a while, finding some new reason to make money off of it. And when there's not a new recut, remaster, reversion out there, then they're just selling like scantily clad figurines of every female character, no matter their age. So it's not my favorite franchise in the world. So I honestly don't care about this specific thing. Don't at me. I don't care. Nothing can get me to care about Evangelion or its redub or anything about it. The more people get incensed about it, which is like everyone I know, the less I care. But overall, I don't mind redubs. Like, sometimes they're just necessary. There's some times where I'm like, this version and this version came out pretty quickly. You could have used the same people, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into why certain things get redubbed, and most of it boils down to who has the rights. And typically, if something's getting redubbed, it's because the person who originally made it and the person who has it now are not the same. So one studio released it back in the 90s, and now a new studio has it, and that new studio is going to pull from its pool of actors rather than the original. So I don't know everything about who got cast for the new Netflix dub. Everybody's indiscriminately hating on it because they're going into it with preconceptions about what they think the characters should sound like. And there are some people with legitimate concerns, but I really think most everybody's just being biased about it. Now, granted, most people are being very, upfront about their bias at least. But anyway, so there's things where sometimes it's just a necessity. Like, sometimes you lose the rights to the dub. So if you want to release it again, it has to be redubbed, or you don't dub it again. So there's a lot of reasons why a studio might do it. But I think it's a fair shake to give somebody new a chance at a role. Like, I don't want to get too much into drama, but the guy who plays Shinji has always been very upfront about how much he hates the character. And then as soon as he saw that he wasn't going to get it, then he threw a shit fit. Or at least that's the rumor. But yeah, sometimes it's just necessary to redub stuff. a lot of the complaints, at least with Evangelion, are about the scripting and how some things were scripted differently. And I wouldn't be able to judge that until I was sitting down listening to the Japanese. But I think the more faithful you are to the Japanese script, probably the better. Everything has to go through an American filter at some point. So there's a lot of various things that go on. But I think all of those things don't matter because nobody is ever going to be happy with this anime. So it doesn't matter if you do redub it or you don't, or if you use the old dub. There's always going to be a bunch of people complaining, because I say this with a lot of love in my heart, but anime fans are really goddamn entitled. And I'm one of them. I am one of them. For real. I get really upset about a lot of stupid things in anime. But at least I separate myself and I go, yeah, but how important is this really? Like, there's a lot of shit where, like, some of my old favorite dubs where a voice actor changed out, and I'm like, how dare they? How dare they take that voice actor away and replace it with this person who's not as good, in my opinion. And then that person has one of the best careers ever made. In the original Slayers series, they had this actor who was playing Zelgadis, and I was like, I like this guy. And then they replaced him, and I was like, I don't like this new guy. This new guy sucks. This new guy was Johnny Young Bosch. I did not like him at all. I hated the fact that they changed out this actor. And then later he just has this amazing career, and he's one of the most popular actors ever, and he's so talented, and I was so resentful.
That was going to be my next question. Was this before or after Trigun?
Oh man, it was probably during, and I wasn't putting the two and two together. I think it was Johnny Young. No, it was Crispin Freeman. It was Crispin Freeman. I was wrong. It was Crispin Freeman, who, again, has one of the best careers in the whole industry. And he's in everything. And he is just so amazingly talented. And I hated him. I was like, I hate this guy. And then when I go back now, that first guy wasn't even that good. Thank God they replaced him.
Okay. Let's see. Next question here. This comes from Alice. And she asked me what I think of EA's recent loot box statement. So for those who don't know what she's referring to, there was a hearing or something in I think it was in England where EA was basically called to the carpet about selling loot boxes in games, and the representative went up and spun this bullshit line about how, it's not, selling loot box isn't gambling, it's surprise mechanics. To which my response is, who the fuck are you trying to fool? Like, did you really think that would fly? Like, I mean, in the strictest definition of the term, I mean, it's not really gambling because there's not a chance of you winning money. But I mean, to try and spin it as like, it's surprise mechanics. It's like, look, that's you damn well that's not why you're being called to the carpet. Damn well that's not why you're being held to the fire. So that was one of those moments where my eyes just almost rolled out of my head. Who are you trying to kid? So
I can't believe it. That Gerald is presenting the quarterly budget report with finger puppets?
Look, here comes a 1.7% decrease in fixed overhead. Hello, everybody.
No, I can't believe how easy it was to save hundreds of dollars on my car insurance with Geico.
Who are you? The projected increase in organic Q3 revenue. Hooray!
Believe it, Geico could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Your home is important. That's why Geico helps make it easy to save on condo insurance. Because home is more than just a place. Home is where you took minimalism too far because there's only one chair in your entire condo and your only entertainment is one card. Not even a deck of cards, but a single card. And all your guests have to share one plate and one fork, but you're convinced that less stuff means more freedom. The Geico Insurance Agency could help protect the overly minimalist broom closet you call home. Call Geico and see how easy it is to switch and save on condo insurance.
But yeah, let's see here now. Speaking of bad company practices, this is another question here from Rini, and she asked me, what I think is the scummiest practice I've ever seen from a game company. To which I'm gonna have to say Bethesda with Fallout 76. That was just an absolute godforsaken mess, and it just gets worse as time goes on. I think we mentioned this, me and Skyblaze mentioned this when we did our E3 show, but when they announced they were finally adding human NPCs and a dedicated Battle Royale mode to Fallout 76, I was like, okay, great. So you're making a big deal out of the fact that you're putting something in the game that should have been in there from the start. Right now Bethesda is number one on my shit list, which is really saying something when you consider some of the things that EA has done. Another thing that another gaming company practice that I really detest. I would have to say charging full DLC prices for something that's maybe like an extra hour of content. Gearbox kind of got on my shit list a little bit with some of the later Borderlands DLC, where you would pay I think when it came out like $15 for something that you could complete in like a half hour to an hour. Stuff like the Mad Moxie Wedding Day Disaster, or that Halloween one. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was called. And that kind of just irritated because it's like it's $15 for something that you'll complete in like an hour. To me, if you're going to ask me to pay $20 for something, it should take me at least 3 or 4 hours to get through the main campaign. I shouldn't be able to breeze through. You find all the content in your DLC in the time it takes for me to watch the evening news. Let's see here now. Okay, let's see. We got a question here for you, Kat. I'm sure we do. Let's see. Oh, okay. Here is one. Here is one from Megan, and she asked, "What is the best transition from anime to live action that you've ever seen?"
Oh God, to live action? Because I genuinely don't watch a lot of the live action stuff. Because like a lot of it is either it doesn't come to America because it's Japanese, or I just avoid it like the plague because they're never that good, and I just don't want to be disappointed. I can't have my heart broken again. But my favorite thing that I've watched, my favorite live action, and I've talked about this show before, but it was it always stuck with me, and it's Nodame's Cantabile. And it wasn't super popular here, but it was super popular, like 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, when I was living in Japan. It was running on TV at the time. And part of it is because it was a slice of life without any fantasy aspects of it. So it was a really easy transition from manga to anime to live action. And the fact that it was done as a TV series and not a movie was really good for something that was a slice of life content. But if you don't know about it, it's about a really kooky girl, really strict guy in a music setting. And if that sounds like Your Lie in April, it's a little bit like Your Lie in April, well before a huge popular thing. But it's some musicians, and they're all goofy and weird, learning to find themselves and fall in love. And yeah, kind of if you liked Your Lie in April but don't want all of the sadness, Nodame's Cantabile is really cute. And it has its like goofy little moments, and they try and translate those into the show with like sweat drops and pratfalls and stuff. And everything was just done really well because it kind of felt like an anime, but with people. And it was just like the over-top hairstyles or whatever they had, for certain characters just worked out so well. Okay.
All right, and she got another question here for me, and this one is, what is a game franchise that has been gone for a while that I'd like to see brought back? This is going to be kind of an unusual answer for me because it's not a series that I really talk about, but I kind of really miss Dance Dance Revolution.
Wow, that is a surprise.
Yeah, and it's so weird because in the 2000s up until I want to say about like 2009, DDR was like everywhere. It was like the big hot thing, and then it just kind of vanished. I think what really killed it off was Guitar Hero, but like. I kind of started feeling nostalgic for DDR when I discovered one of the YouTubers I follow, I can't remember if it's his channel name or if that's just what his show name's called, but Family Jewels. He's a heavy metal guitarist, and he does covers of game and anime and television music. And he recently teamed up with another YouTuber, Adrian Figueroa, who's a great singer, and the pair of them did a cover of Butterfly from, I think it was DDR Ultramax. And it just got me really nostalgic for Dance Dance Revolution. It's like, I mean, I was never any good at it because, who was? I mean, every time I went to play DDR at the local arcade when they were still a thing, I'd always go up, totally humiliate myself, and then there'd be this 6-year-old kid who would come up and pick the hardest song on Ultramax difficulty and just platinum the damn thing, and I'm just like, yeah, I hate you. But I don't know. I especially now that we have things like motion control and VR, I'm kind of surprised that Dance Dance Revolution hasn't made any kind of a comeback, and I'd like to see it brought back. Guitar Hero to maybe kind of a lesser extent. Rock Band, no, that was just a bloated ship, and that deserved to sink. So,
for a younger audience, all three of you who listen, so any of you who are under the age of 20, maybe DDR was life. It was what you did on a Saturday night or a Friday night to blow off steam when you're too young to do drugs or drink or party or get into clubs or something. It's what nerds did, basically. You'd go to the mall with your friends, you'd get mall food, and you'd go play DDR for hours and hours. And you had all of your favorite songs, and you had songs you hated, and everybody did it, and there were tournaments, and there was a lot of can you hold the rails while you play or not, to when you're doing it in hard mode or whatever. And it was part of nerd culture. It was so ingrained in nerd culture.
And what's really surprising now that I stop and think about it? Since I've gotten back into game collecting on the regular and going out I don't think I've seen a single DDR pad in any of my shops. I've never seen one up for sale. I don't know if that's just because people hang on to them, or if it's one of those things that's it's so expensive they just put it up on eBay, but I don't think I've ever seen a DDR pad up for sale. So,
I honestly think a lot of people have held on to theirs. Because there's always the possibility that, everybody says, oh, I'm just going to bust it out.
Yeah.
Sometime, and nobody ever does.
Now, I'll tell you, the wildest, going back to what you're saying about having tournaments and shit, and how, people did all kinds of crazy stuff. The wildest DDR player I ever saw was a guy who, on a I don't know if it was on a dare or a bet, or if that was just how he played, but he did a full 3-song set, completely handstand.
What? But that is the shit. That is the shit that happened. I've definitely seen handstand, but a whole 3-song set. Yeah, this is what nerds did back in the day when you were a nerd who got out and stuff. Oh man. Plus, it was the closest a lot of nerds got to actual exercise. Yeah,
and sense of rhythm.
Yeah. It's that feeling that you got when Pokemon Go first came out. And, wow, I'm out socializing, I'm out interacting, and I'm walking around, and I feel healthier and more alive. That was DDR, except you were at a grungy mall and probably needed to wash your hands after you touched anything. But it was that same, there was a lot of camaraderie and fun rivalry. And I was always terrible at it and was way too shy to get up and do it. But all of my friends played. All of my friends had mats at home and played. And we'd all make fun of whenever somebody picked Sandstorm, stuff like that.
Those are the days. Let's see here now. I actually had another question here that was kind of leaping off of that, but I can't seem to find it. Okay, all right. Okay, let's see here now. All right, here is a question from Dominic, and he's got 2 questions, one for you and one for me. And the question he asked you is, what is your dream anime store? So I guess, what would you consider your perfect anime and manga shop?
Ooh, my dream anime store. I'd want a lot of manga grouped the way they were when I used to shop at Book Off, because Book Off was used, but everything was in really good condition. And because they would get so much stuff in to sell from people who were selling their books, they would like bundle it all up for a very low price. So you could get like 15 or 20 volumes of manga for like $10, $15. And again, everything was in such nice condition. So I have longed resale rates of manga that low. Because, like, if you're buying something used, you're still, unless you're buying it, like, from somebody personally, if you're buying used manga at, like, a local bookshop or something, you are still getting charged, like, $6 or $7 for something that retails for, like, somewhere between $10 and $12. But in Japan, because it was so common and there was no taxation for imports, you could get, like, again, like a set of, like, 15 manga for less than $10 at times. So I long for that. But what I really want is like figurines that aren't all just half-naked girls or Gundams. Like it's cool that there's like a huge crowd for like kits and stuff, but I'd like to find like mecha that isn't just Gundam. And I'd like to find figurines that aren't just half-naked girls or whatever is the most popular thing right now, which is, of course, what makes the most sense to sell. But I like, some older shows and stuff. And I'd like to be able to find, some merch from, like, shows from the 90s. Like, if I could find a Trigun figurine in this day and age without having to pay a fortune, that would be stupendous.
And I'll tell you what, if you ever find one, you let me know.
Yeah, and then like merch that isn't just like Nendroids and Pops. Like figurines. Like the imports from Japan that cost a fortune that I will still buy anyway. Something besides the cute little chibis. I want other things.
And people ask why nerds don't typically do drugs. It's because we've already found something that's taken all our money.
It's so bad. Like, even the Nendroids are super expensive. Like, they're like, you get a little Final Fantasy character and it's like $60 and it's a chibi. And I'm like, no, for $60, I want, like, details.
What surprises me about figures is how wildly prices will vary. It's like I'm real deep into the Amazon game. I will buy just about everything off Amazon, and that includes like figures and stuff. And like, I'll find a figure of, say, like, Connor from Assassin's Creed 4, and it'll be like $60. Then I go and I find one of Cloud from Final Fantasy 7, and it'll be like $150. And then the one that really made me want to just, put a gun to my head and do what needs doing was I found a figure that I really liked of Big Boss from Metal Gear Solid 5, and it was 350 bones. And I'm like, hell no.
It's quite a game to play. And again, like I said, it depends on the popularity of the character. It depends on how popular the franchise is. So anything that's Final Fantasy is going to be infinitely more expensive than pretty much anything else on the market. It also depends on if there's a specific designer of the figurines, or how old the figurines are, because obviously the older, the more rare, therefore they're going to charge more.
Okay, I get the rarity by age, but designers of figures, are you telling me that there's like named artists who do these things, like that people follow specifically for that designer? Is that a thing?
Well, there was like there's a whole series of figures that are Batman characters designed by somebody from Square Enix.
Oh yeah, the Nomura Comics collection. I remember that.
Yeah, so there's stuff like that where they might be specifically designed by a certain company, and not just like the merchandise licensor, but by a specific company who's known for just making really high quality stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, Christ, if you're into figures, that is, oh my god. Like, I love the Okami figurines because it's like one of the 2 video games I actually play. Okami has such gorgeous figurines, but they're like, they start at like $400.
Yeah, I remember.
Just melts my brain.
that you're into Okami, you went you'd found this like on the dollars, and you were like, I weep openly that I can't afford this.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, even now that I could afford that, I still wouldn't pay. Like, I can't bring myself to spend oodles and oodles and oodles of money on something that is literally just going to sit on my shelf and never get touched. Like, I don't mind spending like $60 on a figure if I really, really like the character. But, you know, if I'm going to spend a shit ton of money on something, I want to get daily out of it. Like you and your retro game. Yeah. I want to be able to use this thing.
Okay. So like what's your ceiling on purchasing a figure?
I don't think I'd spend more than $80. I think that's where I draw the line. But really, like, I haven't bought a figure in quite a while because there's nothing I'm really interested in that I can actually find right now.
Okay. Well, well, yeah, it's wild the prices some of these figures reach. For something that's maybe like 6 inches tall. Like, if it's like a full-on statue, okay, I can see myself paying 300 bones for something. But for what's essentially a really well-detailed action figure, no thank you. He said as he spends $150 on a pair of Squid Sisters Amiibo from Splatoon. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, let's see here now. Okay, we're kind of running on the end of our time here, so let's see if we got a nice easy question here. Here's one from Tom, and it's for all of us. And he asked, now that the Infinity Saga is over for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what are some things that you would like to see done in the next phase of Marvel movies? So, Kat, let's start with you on this one. Where would you like to see Marvel movies go from here?
Gosh, I really don't know. I don't really have a scope of, what in the comics haven't they done yet. I'd like to see a Captain Marvel sequel. I think we're getting one. I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah,
I know we're getting a Captain Marvel, and I think we got Black Widow coming out next year.
Yeah, assuming they actually do it. I haven't heard or not yet. It might be. But apparently, like, from what I've heard, the people who greenlit Black Widow didn't know what was going to be happening in Endgame. So there was like a little lack of communication there.
Right hand not talking to the left.
So that could be very interesting. I mean, I just want anything with Hawkeye. Put Hawkeye in it and I'm fine.
He needs his own movie.
He needs to be in Black Widow's movie, and they need to explain what the fuck happened in Budapest. Because that's been sitting around in our brains for, like, years and years now. We're like, what the fuck happened in Budapest? They should just have a movie and call it Budapest, and the whole thing is set in Budapest. I'd like... I want to see something new. I don't want another... I mean, I'll take another Guardians of the Galaxy, but I don't need another Guardians of the Galaxy. What I want is, like, Nova, or just someone new to bring some new blood into the franchise. Because I feel like they're going to start... With Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans leaving the MCU, that they're going to start phasing out some more of the... I don't want to say older actors. These guys are really that old, but some of the actors who have been in the MCU for a lot longer in favor of some new young blood who will either take over other roles, like somebody new becomes Iron Man or somebody new becomes Captain America, which is something I really want to see. I really wanted to see either Falcon or Bucky or somebody take over as Captain America.
Well,
I thought for sure we were going to get it, and now they're getting their own spin-off show together. So what the hell? I don't know. I'm excited for a lot of the TV shows that they've announced. I'm curious about how some of them are going to work.
Yeah. Let's see. For me, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I like to see some of the lesser-known Marvel characters get some time in the spotlight. And even some of the ones that have already gotten movies but didn't exactly, set the world on fire, like, say, Ghost Rider, who's one of my favorite Marvel characters ever. I'd love to see a Ghost Rider movie with the Johnny Blaze version of the character, because I don't know, I'm a sucker for flaming motorcycles. What can I say?
Aren't we all, though? Who isn't a sucker for flaming motorcycles?
Let's see. I've heard talk that there was going to be a Moon Knight movie in the works. And for those who don't know, Moonlight is basically Batman but psycho. Let's see. I've made my peace with the fact that I'm not going to get a Punisher movie. So as disappointed as I am with that, I've made my peace with that. I don't think they do it because of the way the character exists as sort of a parody and satire of comic book tropes. But I think a She-Hulk movie based on the early 2000s run, where she was working in a law firm defending comic book characters in court and using the actual comic book issues as evidence in the court proceedings, I think would be hilarious. I think it would be hysterical to have her defend the law, defend, say, like, Spider-Man in a property damage lawsuit. It's like, okay, but you'll see in Spider-Man Homecoming at the 1 hour and 35-minute mark, you did this.
That would make a great TV show. I mean, they've made shows that are kind of like that, like the cleanup crew after superheroes, or the superheroes. That sort of thing would be really great to put into the MCU proper, via the Disney Plus, all those shows that they're going to do.
Yeah, and let's see. I know that when Brian was here, he was really pushing hard for I think Alpha Flight to get a show, or more specifically Beta Ray Bill.
I was going to say it. He's never not mentioned Beta Ray Bill.
God, let's see. Who else I think would be cool? Part of the problem is, like, I haven't really been reading into comics regularly since I actually worked in a comic book store, so there's a lot that's happened that I'm not really familiar with. But yeah, I'd like to see. I'd like to see Marvel take another leap, a few more leaps of faith like they did with Guardians of the Galaxy. Because before that movie came out, fucking nobody knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. So I'd like to see some more leaps of faith like that. So let's see, and so we're kind of running out of time here. So that's about all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. Now, a little bit of a business before we leave. There is an announcement that we have to make. And that is that after this week, we are going to be moving to a bi-weekly release schedule. We're going to be putting out a new episode every 2 weeks. And the reason why we're doing this, and I can't give too many details because Mike's not here, and he's the one who's actually put this whole thing together. But I will say that one of the reasons why we're doing this is we want to try to kind of expand our range of content and try some new things. So we are actually working on a second show. Not going to give too many details because, like I said, we're still hammering that stuff out. But we're not doing this just out of sheer laziness. We're doing this because we've actually got some stuff that we want to do to actually expand our range of content and bring some more awesomeness to you guys. So just to let you guys know that after this episode, we're moving to a 2-week release schedule. So we will see you guys in 2 weeks for Weird Endings, when shows have built up themselves so large, then to get to the end game, and it's just kind of what the hell happened here. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you as always for tuning in. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat.
All right, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Taka, play us out.
Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn, ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn, tell people to stay off the lawn, compare it to your neighbor's lawn, and complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance. which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
Geico presents, yikes, another voicemail from your roommate.
Sup, roomie? Hey, a pipe burst in the basement. It's completely flooded. Anyway, I called for someone to fix it, but in the meantime, I was thinking we could finally have that indoor pool party we've always wanted. I got some cool swan floaty things already going. Could you pick up some chips on your way home? Later.
The Geico Insurance Agency could help keep your personal property protected, like if your roommate isn't the brightest pool float in the flooded basement. Visit geico.com to see how easy it is to switch and save on renter's insurance.